So hello, everyone, and welcome to our Mad PD session. I want to shout out to Derek and Peter for this amazing day of learning. It's such a beautiful day outside, and yet all I wanted to do was come in and sit on my computer and learn with all the amazing presenters. So thank you. Shout out to you, gentlemen. I'm Jennifer Casa-Todd. I'm a teacher librarian in Aurora, Canada, and also the author of the book Social Media. And today we're going to talk a little bit about class social media accounts and digital leadership. And I am so honored and excited to bring on board with me a panel of awesomeness. So I'm going to get them to introduce themselves. We'll start with you, Michelle.
Hi, Michelle Baldwin. I'm in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and I teach at Anastasis Academy in Centennial, Colorado. And I've had my Team Baldwin account, I think, for about 6 or 7 years now. And it's been wonderful to share our learning with others.
She is a pioneer for sure. Thank you, Michelle. Paulo.
Oh, hi. Good afternoon, Jennifer. My name is Paulo. I'm a grade 5 teacher presently with the Toronto Catholic District School Board. I actually teach also secondary classes online, and I'm really happy to be here.
We're happy to have you. And so I invited Paulo because he's fairly new to the journey of class social media accounts. So I think it'll bring a different perspective for sure. And finally, Alicia, who has gone in a totally different direction. She's going to tell us more about that later. But Alicia, if you can introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Alicia Pasquale. I'm a teacher at Markham District High School with the York Region District School Board. And our social media journey is relatively new. We started an Instagram page to support our project called Youth for Reconciliation around February. And it's been amazing since. So I'm excited to talk to you guys and join you today.
Thank you so much. So I'm excited too. So everyone, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to start with a little bit of a why. So why am I so passionate about this topic? And then we're going to go into our panelists, and they're going to share stories from their classroom because they're living it right now. And then that will hopefully bring us into a Q&A for people who are thinking about it or have some questions. If you could primarily put your questions in the YouTube live comments section. Since my concussion, I have trouble multitasking, but I could definitely look on the comment section there once I've stopped sharing. So we'd love to take your comments and your questions to the panel. And then I have resources for you. I like to overplan, so I don't know that we'll get to them, but I certainly will show you some of the things that I have that may help you on your journey if the wonderful advice and experiences of our panelists don't give you a million different ideas. So I'm just going to share my screen now. And essentially, as soon as I get there, perfect. All right, so I've already shared the session goals. I just want to be clear about the fact that I don't think that social media is destroying the world. It seems like everywhere we read that this is the reality. And yet I know so many of us who are on social media. I mean, I met Michelle this past ISTE, but I have never met in real life Alicia or Paulo. And yet I have insight into the things that they're doing in their classrooms. I have felt supported by people on social media. I have made incredible connections. And so those of us who have a PLN or know what a PLN is, we know that there is another side to social media. And we also, I think, understand by now that students are using social media at younger and younger ages. And so that we really need to help them navigate these waters. That's part of what we need to do. So my journey into this, I was always just the control freak mom, right? And I found myself telling kids what not to do online an awful lot. And when my friend George Kuros, and now mentor, talked about digital leadership, that is using the vast reach of technology, especially social media, to improve the lives, well-being, circumstances of others, I'm like, yes, this is exactly what kids can do and the stance that we can take. So in my journey to write my book, and I'm also doing my master's course, I have met so many incredible kids who are leading in, face-to-face spaces, but also extending that learning online. And what's really interesting about all these kids is that they've had an adult mentor in their lives to support what they do online and to help them out, with the exception of Timmy Sullivan, who's the bottom right-hand corner. He's the only one in this whole group of kids that had a teacher that supported his use of social media in the classroom and encouraged him to connect with app developers. And the number of possibilities that have opened up for him as a result have been incredible. So I do an awful lot of thinking about that. And I think about, the digital citizenship piece that is super important, right? Copyright, being appropriate, having a positive digital footprint. But I wonder if we're doing enough. Are we helping to empower our students to learn and share learning, to address inequality, or to promote important causes, or to be a more positive influence on others? Are we helping them to tap into their passions and finding a community, whether it be in person or online, to make those passions come alive and to make those connections? And I know there's research to support the use of adult role modeling. This is in the Technology Addiction Executive Summary from 2016 that talks about how we need to embrace a balanced approach to media and technology and to support adult role modeling in order to prevent problematic use. And then there's the Albert Bandura's theory of observational learning that talks about the fact that kids look at the role models that they have and emulate them. And so in the book, I talk about Stephanie Viveros and her kindergarten class and how her kids are really making decisions about what's private and what's public, and they're taking their own pictures and helping the teacher post online. And then I talk about Rob Canone and how he has different social media committees, and social media is only one of those committees, and how he navigates that. And then I talk about Kayla Delzer in the book, and she has a digital citizenship boot camp, and they're dressed in camo in this picture. But then they have a tweeter of the day, an Instagrammer of the day, and a Snapchatter of the day. And I think what's most significant is that Riley Hansen, who wrote a vignette for social media, who's only in grade 3, says, I want to be proud of my social media accounts. And so I really believe that if we want to see some change in these spaces, if we want to empower our students to make these spaces more awesome, that we need to get involved. And I know some of us already celebrate some of the great stuff happening in our classrooms. So we tweet out the things that we're doing, and that's really fantastic. There are lots of people who say, if you don't share your story, then someone else will. And that is super, super important. But one of the things I have been thinking about lately is, and I got a letter from a parent who said, can you help me? Because my school and my son's teacher is using my son for marketing purposes. And I went, wow, we're really missing the boat here. So there hasn't been adequate communication with parents, obviously, about why they're using social media. And then, thinking about that added piece about how are we empowering our kids to make some of these decisions on their class social media accounts, which is why I brought these fabulous people on board. So when I work with teachers around a class social media account, I ask them to consider what platform they should choose. And that should be based on where their parents are, or the grandparents are, where the students are. We want to meet kids where they are. I also say, think about your purpose. Are you wanting to celebrate others, your own class, your friends, and the connections or the people you meet online? Are you going to be commenting positively when you see people sharing? Are you going to share your learning? Are you going to invite other people to learn with you? And what do your kids have to add to that, right? Because they should really feel a part of what's happening. Things that you need to remember: developing a culture of asking permission before you take a post, and that certainly will serve them well in life. I think adults can use that too. That not everything that happens in the classroom needs to be shared. Like, those are really important and great conversations too. What are the class guidelines? What will we do if something goes wrong? And then what might the format for this be? So without further ado, we've got Michelle Baldwin, who's going to talk about her Team Baldwin account. And so you can just click on her image in the presentation, or the Team Baldwin image. It will take you directly to those accounts. We're going to talk to Paulo De Bono, and the link to his class account is there. And then we're going to talk to Alicia Pasquale, and the link to her Instagram account is sort of at the bottom. And the link for the Instagram account. Sorry, the Instagram's at the bottom and her website is at the top. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can have our panelists have a conversation. In the meantime, I'm going to check some of the questions on YouTube Live. So who wants to start? Okay, I pick you, Michelle.
I was just about to volunteer. So thanks again for having me. I'm so pleased to be able to share our why and how important and valuable our class Twitter account has been. When I first started at Anastasis Academy, which was our first year of our school, one of the things that I noted was, how connected my Twitter account helped me in my own personal learning and professional learning. And I thought, well, why can't we do that with our classrooms too? And I know that, we talk a lot about having an authentic audience for our students, and blogs are one way to do that. But Twitter was also a really quick way to get some feedback from my kids when they were sharing and demonstrating what they'd been learning. So we talked a lot about how important it was. At the time, I was teaching 8 to 11-year-old students, and they would just come up sometimes and just say, oh, hey, let's put this on Twitter. We have a question. And we would get responses back. We used Google Forms. We just put questions into Twitter. We were connecting with other classrooms. And then we started to see how important that learning was for us. Then we started connecting to experts. My students have talked with Earth Echo International and Philippe Cousteau. They've spoken with Sylvia Earle, LeVar Burton, NASA engineers. I mean, the list goes on. And how incredible of an opportunity is that for kids to realize that just because they might be one little person somewhere anywhere in the world, they are connected to someone else. My Twitter account for Team Baldwin doesn't have as many followers as I have, but we are building that continually throughout the years. And having those two accounts connected, being able to retweet my class often provides just the next piece of that networking. And then a lot of educators on Twitter will also retweet and respond. And just knowing that one friend turns into thousands of friends who now have seen the Twitter impressions that you see, how that really impacts the kids to know that their voices are out there. So that was my reason of getting into Twitter with my class. We've shared pictures, we've shared steps in learning. We're an inquiry-based school, so a lot of times we set our questions out there and talk through our inquiry process. And again, my kids realize that it's not just me responding to them. They have a fuller audience that goes beyond the four walls of our school. And they are also impacting the learning of other people and not just students. And that's extremely powerful for them. So when it was one little boy, when I now teach 5 to 7-year-olds, and a couple of years ago, a little boy said, could we share this with our Twitter friends? And he knew that meant he had a network outside of the school too. Did he know those people? No. And we've talked a lot about how we share specific things on Twitter and other things we keep for our classroom, but they're learning at a very young age how impactful social media can be for them, but also that there are some things that we just don't share. So as Jennifer was saying, we have to ask permission to take photos. We stop and think through what we're going to share with our network. And that's a discussion that we have about digital citizenship, as well as what's appropriate and what's not appropriate to share. There are sometimes when they come up with some really funny things, oh, can we tell them this? I'm like, oh, let's think about that. But it's been a really great opportunity for my kids. And just even using the hashtag comments for kids, being able to connect on Twitter to get to other people's blogs and to see other students writing, and have my students learn how to comment on those blog posts as well. So there's a lot more than just Twitter involved here. And our school has an account on Twitter and Instagram that's Team Anastasis, and we retweet each other. And it's just this wonderful blended way of learning that allows kids to understand the power of networking from a pretty early age.
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, so many golden nuggets in there. Did you ever have parent pushback?
Not really. At our school, it's an opt-out policy. So you're automatically opted in unless you tell us you don't want them. And we do have some parents who say, I prefer not to have my child's face. And I'm very well aware of that and happy to oblige. I don't use my students' names all the time. A lot of times I use initials, especially for the younger kids. When I take pictures of their work, then I have to ask them, is this okay if I share this on our Twitter account? They always say yes. There is some controversy about that. So I'm really careful of how much I share versus what they say and how their learning goes. But as of right now, our parenting community has been pretty accepting of that, and they love it because they can share our Twitter account. Even for people who aren't on Twitter, they're able just to go to the web links and look to see what the kids have been doing that day, and they love that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Michelle. Mm-hmm. So, Paulo, do we want to talk about your relatively recent journey?
Yes, sure. It's relatively recent for sure. I read your book or started reading it last summer, Jennifer, and it really motivated me, I have to say. And, I was really big on social citizenship, social media, digital citizenship, but it really got my attention on the importance of digital leadership. And so I thought of ways I can use that in the classroom. And I also noticed there were teachers who had kind of like mixed accounts. They had their own account they were using to promote what they're doing in the classroom, and sometimes talking about as if it was a student account, but it was really theirs. So I thought of having two different accounts, my own and a student account, and using Twitter. So that was another reason why I did that. And I wanted to find a way for students, because we talk about them making connections beyond their school. And this was a very effective way to do that, for them to see what's going on and to communicate with others. So that's basically some of the why. With the getting my parents on board, I have better ideas for next year than this year. But this year I basically had in my curriculum night an event where they were open to the idea of their students being involved on media. In our parent-teacher interviews in November, I actually talked one-on-one on them and said that some of my educational purposes this year were to involve their students in reaching out on Twitter and in other ways. And I asked if they wanted to participate, if they would sign a form. And some did, most did, and some didn't. And then from then on, I respected that some students may be included in certain ways, but others not. So that was my correspondence with parents. And there have been some more specific things. For example, we were on an online chat in April. And in that case, I got specific permission again from the 3 students who really wanted to do that. So that's partly how I got them on board.
And I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to interrupt you for 1 second. So I'm so excited. That's how I knew you had a social media account for your students, because you joined us with our Ontario On-Ed student chat, which is it's a student-driven chat where once a month kids are posing questions. We have a tweet and talk, borrowed that from Sarah Thomas, and kids are responding to one another online. And so can you tell us a little bit more about how that experience for them has been, being involved in that and responding to people in a Twitter chat format?
Well, the chat was usually by text on Twitter, and there were questions set on, and there would be a morning set aside each month. And in some cases, we did it literally live. On another month, I remember we prepared the questions in advance, and I used it as a language opportunity to work collaboratively, where the groups of 4 came up with their own answers, but they worked collaboratively to get there. And then eventually they start asking, can we do it live? Can we go? Because they have some sessions where students are appearing. And so I did ask, and Leah Cassell asked us to appear in April. And again, I asked students who really wanted to do that, and there were 3 specifically. Actually 5 who asked and 3 who had parental permission to do that. So in April, we were actually live, and you can actually see that on YouTube now. And that was one of your questions about what was positive and rewarding. It was really amazing to see that April event, because you can see from the video how often they were the most eager to answer. They really wanted to share. They want to be digital leaders. And that was one opportunity for them to do so.
Thank you so much, Paulo. All right, and Alicia, why don't we move into something different that you're doing with a class social media account?
Sure. So there are 7 teachers in total that are involved in our project, and we created the page. Really, the most simple answer is to engage our learners. We wanted to modernize the traditional novel study. We're reading Richard O'Gomesey's Indian Horse collaboratively with a classroom located in a remote First Nations community in Northwestern Ontario, and we're connecting with the very people whose voices are being shared in the novel. So the Instagram page, the YFR project, was created to help our students develop their critical thinking skills, to see the value of their learning, and to see that what they're doing and what they're learning extends beyond the classroom. It has helped me answer the question, why is this important? A common complaint that we often hear from students is, what am I doing in the class? How is this relevant to my life? And this project has made what we're doing relevant for our kids. They're learning new things, they're reflecting on their own lives, and through the page they're being introduced to the perspective of other people. And how phenomenal is that is what social media is supposed to be doing. So for us, that's building relationships between Indigenous and non-Indigenous youth and communities. The kids have been sharing photo stories inspired by some aspect of the novel that we're reading together, and sharing their lived experiences and worldviews. And it's just been incredibly powerful and beautiful to hear their stories. As far as getting parents on board, to be honest, that was really easy. I frequently update parents on what's going on in my classroom, and from the beginning, I invited them to be part of this project with us. So we actually have a number of parents who are following the page, engaging with the photo stories. And the best compliment I received was at our last parent-teacher interview. Parents came in and a mom said to me, that you're doing something special when you're engaging families, not just students. And I thought that's amazing. That's what we want to do. As far as the rewards for our students, to be honest, it's just been getting the absolutely incredible insights into the lives of one another. Of course, incredible insights into the lives of these students in this other community who are 1,400 kilometers away from us, and who we wouldn't have a relationship with if not for this project, but also incredible insights into the lives of the students in our very own classrooms. And the other teachers that are involved in Markham with myself have commented over and over again just how impactful it's been getting to know our kids on a different level. And the students say the same things. Like, I had no idea that there are other students that thought this way or shared this idea or these concerns that I did. And then another reward has just been how eager the kids have been to share their stories and their perspectives. As far as the challenges that we've encountered, I have to be honest and say that there have been almost none. To be honest with you, I think part of it might be that the teachers post the photo stories for the students. So they share their stories through a Google Doc, and then we post from the page. And we do that to allow for some anonymity. Some of the students are sharing really personal, impactful stories, and that allows them to be anonymous if they'd like to be. But the comments are an open forum. So if there was a challenge, it would be that for like the first few weeks of the project, I would wake up in the morning and the first thing I would do is frantically check the page, because I was like, oh my God, what if someone's posted something inappropriate? And we've not had that. And so the challenge is just been trusting the kids, and they're awesome. Like, this is their world, and we have to help them hone it and show them how to use it constructively. And it's been awesome.
Okay, thank you so much. There's so much in there that I love. I think so many people talk about social media as not being about empathy, right? That we've lost our sense of empathy. But one of the things that I noticed when I was reading some of the Instagram posts by the students was that it's actually the opposite. I am learning about the perspective of others in a way that I never would have learned before without being on your page. And one moment in particular, I'm just going to share if that's okay, but the entire exchange is really about getting to know First Nations people. But there was one entry about a young, I don't know if it's a boy or a girl, and I know that you purposefully leave it open so that for that anonymity piece, but talking about his Muslim identity, and how he feels like in some ways he needs to be ashamed of that, but in other ways not. And I almost started to cry reading it. I thought it was so beautiful and so powerful, and such an amazing way that this project has opened up in scope in such an incredibly powerful way. So kudos to you on that. And I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add about that piece.
Just in response to that, what I'll say is it's funny because another one of the common complaints we hear about social media is that people are no longer connecting in person anymore, right? Like everything's taking place online. And so the posts on the Instagram page have actually facilitated amazing conversations face-to-face and in the class. So with regards to that post in particular, the next day we came into class and there were so many of my students who were like, I feel that way too. And that provided an opportunity in class to talk about, let's make space for this conversation. Let's talk about these concerns that you have. And then taking it one step further and connecting it back to our book and the shared experiences that we all ultimately have with one another, despite what community you live in or what ethnic group you belong to.
So beautiful. Thank you. Do any of you have something to add before I move in? I'm mindful of the time. It's 4:25. So I'm going to share my screen with some of the resources that I have prepared, which I'm going to do in literally 3 minutes. But it's something that certainly you can take away with you. So thank you so much for the sharing. I think we've answered. There's lots of chatter in the YouTube live. I think we've answered a lot of it. Many of them were just comments, friends. Do take a look at the YouTube comments afterwards, Michelle and Alicia and Paulo, because they've all been very, very positive. So I'm going to now share the last little bit of my screen, which is my resources. So I think the biggest thing, certainly Alicia said the letting go and the worry. And I think, I think it's healthy and normal and a good thing to worry. But I also think there are some things that you can do when it comes to your social media accounts that will naturally sort of allow your students to be a little bit not protected, but certainly use it in a way that's different. We all know that social media is about who you follow, right? So now that you have a class account, I would say the first thing to take a look at is who to follow. And this is a Padlet, and you're welcome to add to it. You just click on the image on the presentation, it'll bring you there. And I've curated Twitter lists. So people to learn from, people who promote important causes, or people that are honestly a more positive influence on others. So that when you start to follow these accounts, you will quickly realize, the algorithms in Twitter or Instagram or wherever it is that you are will suggest other people that are similar. And this is how I've met a lot of people. I know there was one question, like, where do I start? And my first instinct is start where your families are, because as many people have, like all three of our panelists have said, is wow, right? This has been an open forum of communication with our parents. So you kind of want to be where your parents are. So if you click on any one of those icons, I've created resources that might help you with those individual types of accounts. And here I've also just gone through the individual, like learn and share learning. So all the individual pieces of digital leadership that I outline in the book. So one of the Twitter lists, as I said, is about following some of these accounts, right? So that kids are using this, not just, I think Nate Green said this morning, not just for consumption, but for learning. And that's been my stance. Interactivity. So Brian asks, what pattern does this produce? I do a puzzle of the day so that you are engaging families to get on there and answer together. It's really hard to answer this in a really negative way, right? So this is what I mean about, in some ways, making sure that this is kind of a positive experience. This is an amazing opportunity that Anik and Nicole are starting tomorrow. They're reading books. Those are the three of them. They've picked a fourth one as well. And then it's kind of like a mini global read aloud, in that kids are going to be reading books and then you can connect to others reading those books. There's a Flipgrid Discovery Library where you can connect your kids. We've heard Michelle talk about how significant some of these connections have been to her kids. And depending on what is blocked or not blocked, Flipgrid may be a good alternative for you. I'm not going to show you this video, but Brad Gustafson, he does book talks with his school. And I thought, what a fabulous way, again, to engage families where they're creating book talks and they're posting them to your class or social media accounts. If you don't know Tara Martin and her Book Snaps Revolution, certainly this is a way that I engage my kids in close reading of text. You know, I get them, that's from our book club, you know, you get them to read parts that resonate with them and talk about why, but certainly their cousin gratitude snaps, you know, maybe once a week your class engages in a gratitude snap. So for whom are they grateful? And every time you talk about who you're grateful, then that's always a good thing. This is the OnEd student chat that Paulo's been a part of. Our last one is on Tuesday. Do check it out. It's an amazing opportunity for your kids. Again, very student driven. We just help facilitate the conversations, really. It's an incredible opportunity for K-12. And this month we're talking about coding. And then I discovered this. It's 2 fourth graders who created a Twitter chat. So if you're interested in checking that out, then please do. And again, there's a hyperlink. All of these kids, there's a link there to an awesome table. They are all standing up for injustice in one way or another. Joshua Williams is amazing to follow. Chloe Thompson is. These are kids that are stomping out homelessness and hunger. All of them are incredible. And there's also the Teach SDGs, that if you jump on that hashtag, you will certainly find other like-minded classes with whom to connect. And compliment walls, like we talk about how great they would be. How about extending that into the, you know, the Twitter sphere or Instagram? Have I thrown enough at you? I'm going to check to see if there are any other questions. And I did want to just share one more thing, and that is Tamara Letter's Passion Projects. They're just sharing those now, and they're an incredible way to get your kids to be kind, not just in person, but online. So much. Oh my gosh, I don't even know what the questions are. Is it likely that parents could be on all those accounts as long as you pick one? And I would agree with you, Peggy, that picking one and keeping it manageable is really, really important. Alicia, someone's asking how you made the connection with the other classroom.
Another shout out for the positive aspects of social media. I'm actually on Facebook, and I'm on an Ontario resource sharing page. And last summer, or just before the start of the summer, I posted and was just looking for a teacher to connect with in an Indigenous community. And another teacher, Lana Kim, reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm here. What do you want to, or what are you thinking?" And my answer to her was, "I don't know, but I want to do something." And so together we grew it. And just to mention Flipgrid, we started with Flipgrid first semester. So this project's actually been a full year long project, and that's been a phenomenal tool too. And what was so great about Flipgrid was we had some really unique opportunities to bring parents into the classroom that way. So again, making some connections from the novel to lived experiences. And one of my students, his father was one of the Malaysian boat people. And so he recorded a Flipgrid response talking to us about that. And it was awesome. So Facebook, it was great to connect that way with other teachers.
And I have to say, for all the connections, they've all been through Twitter as well. I mean, we've connected with Norway, we've connected with a First Nations class as well, and those have all been Twitter connections. There are lots of Google Plus communities out there as well. And often, if you look at the mystery Skype Google community, for example, these are teachers that are willing to connect with you anyway, because they want to do a mystery Skype. That's like a 20 questions. Have you guys done mystery Skype? I'm sure you have, Michelle, yes. And then having an ongoing connection with the class after mystery Skype is also a great idea. All right, so I think we're well past our time. I just want to thank Michelle and Paulo and Alicia so much for taking time out of your day to be here. I really, really appreciate you sharing. See, the problem with writing a book is it's so finite, so I'm so grateful for these opportunities to continue to showcase and celebrate awesome, awesome, awesome educators who are empowering students. So thank you so much for joining me. And for all of you that joined live, or if you're watching this in the archive, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch along with us. Thanks a lot.